Our next speaker will be Toastmaster Ahsan Ghori, and his evaluator is one of the youngest Toastmaster of Millennium Club, engineer by profession, Toastmaster Johnny Matthew, and I would ask him to read out the objective of the project of Ahsan Ghori.
Toastmaster of the evening, fellow Toastmasters, good evening.
Good evening.
Ahsan Ghori is doing his project number 2, and the title is for organizing his speech. Its objectives are: select an appropriate outline which allows listeners to easily follow and understand your speech. Make your message clear with supporting material directly contributing to the message. Use appropriate transitions when moving from one idea to another. Create a strong opening and conclusion. Over to you,
Toastmaster Ahsan Ghori is working for Bureau Veritas. He is happily married with 3 children and he loves to play tennis. So let us see today what he is going to offer in his second project. Let us welcome Toastmaster Ahsan Ghori.
Hello? Clear? Hello? Audible? One of the most memorable and treasured moment for any couple, I would say, is the birth of the first child. As the due date arrives, the anxiety level of the couple increases day by day. The peak of anxiety is when the birth pain for the mother starts, and the climax is when the child arrives in this world crying. I emphasize, the child arrives in this world crying. All children come into this world crying the same way. Fellow Toastmasters, Madam Toastmasters, distinguished guests, Toastmaster of the day, good evening to you all.
Good evening.
At that moment of the childbirth, the mother too cries. Perhaps she is crying out of the ordeal of the pain she has just undergone, the relief from the pain. As the child is diligently placed on the mother's bosom, she looks at the child and sheds a tear of joy and happiness. Seeing the child for the first time, she sheds a tear of that miracle that has just happened. My dear fellow Toastmasters, the crying is an emotion, is a reaction of a complex emotion that our body undergoes. We all cry, don't we? As a child grows, it starts into different phases of crying. Initially, the child cries. It has a, the child's conversation starts with crying. The child initially cries when it is hungry, and the mother knows the child is hungry and feeds the child. And then the child cries when it faces discomfort or pain. The parents understand the discomfort and take care of the child. And then the child cries seeking attention. So on and so forth. And then the crying evolves. We adults also cry. All of us cry. Some people cry for happiness and joy. Some people cry of sadness and sorrow. Some cry when all others are crying. Psychological, hysterical cry. Some people cry while watching TV, movies, dramas. Some people cry after a drinking bout. Some people shed crocodile tears. So we all cry. My dear friends, crying is not because of weakness. Crying is because we all have a heart. Women cry more easily than men. For them, crying comes naturally. But for men, they don't cry. They don't want to cry, or they don't want to be seen crying, because they think they are the providers and the protectors. They don't want to bring themselves down, they want to be very strong. They say that I am the macho man and I don't cry. But it is not the case. I have seen some men crying in movie theaters. They look here and there, and then they take the tissue and wipe the tear off, and then hope that nobody has seen them. They don't like to be seen crying. But it is not so now. Haven't we seen the famous tennis player, Federer? He cried out after losing the Australian Open in front of thousands of spectators and perhaps millions of fans watching him on TV. He cried out in the open, not behind closed doors. Well, now let me narrate an incident in my life so that you can understand how important crying is. 13 years ago, my wife was pregnant with our first child. Like all couples, we too were too excited and awaiting the arrival of the baby. And my wife was in India and I was in Abu Dhabi at that time, and I was waiting for that call. And when that call came, my hands were shivering and I had goosebumps all over. I took the phone and the voice on the other end said, "It's a baby girl. Congratulations, everything is fine." I cried out of sheer joy. Later, I came to know that when my child came into this world, she did not cry. The nurse and the midwife were desperate. They wanted to make her cry. They slapped her left and right, and they shook her to make her cry. Finally, she gave a feeble sound, and that was it. Later, my wife joined me in Abu Dhabi. And everything was normal until one fine day, when my child was sick, we went to the doctor. The doctor, after examining the child, prescribed her some medicines, and he said he wanted to meet me privately. And at that moment, my heart stopped for a moment and then started moving at a rapid pace. When the doctor says such things, it always means bad news. So when the doctor met me, he told me that your child has a problem. I said, "What problem?" He said, "Your child has a developmental delay. She has Down syndrome." At that moment, I was just staring at the doctor. My eyes were blank, my mind was blank, and I was crying silently. And at that moment, I know when the child comes into this world, it has to cry. If it doesn't cry, it means three things. First, the child is born dead. Second, the child is born abnormal. And the third, the child has swallowed in a lot of fluid. My dear fellow Toastmasters, when a child comes into this world, it cries. And when the child leaves this world, when we leave the world, all others are crying for us. Please do cry and don't be shy. Thank you.